Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first workshop as part of the Australia-Vietnam Innovation Exchange Program. Today's program will focus on Australian EdTech understanding the Vietnamese context. I'm Sarah Lamont, the Program Coordinator at EduGrowth. It is a delight to have all the Australian companies participating in the program present today. So I'd like to welcome all of you for joining us. For those that are new to EduGrowth, we are Australia's education, technology and innovation industry hub. Through connection and collaboration, we accelerate Australia's EdTech ecosystem globally. EduGrowth exists today because of the vision and leadership shown by 6 of our founding partners who saw opportunity that exists in Australia to be a global leader in education technology. We thank these organisations for their ongoing support. I would like to thank the Australian government, specifically the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and Austrade for their support in this program. Before we proceed with today's program, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of Australia and recognise their continuous and unbroken connection to the land, waters and culture across the country. Today I join you from the land of the Bidjigal and people of the Eora Nation. I extend my respects to elders past, present and emerging in all Australia, including from where you are joining us from. I especially welcome and extend my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present today. Today's program is a deep dive into the Vietnamese EdTech market, looking specifically at the opportunities in market and how Australian companies can capitalise. On today's call, we'll be joined by a Vietnam in-country partner EdTech agency founder, Han Nguyen, who will be giving a detailed overview of the Vietnamese EdTech market. So this will be a deeper dive compared to the introduction we received at the program launch a few weeks back. Then we'll be joined by Van Nan Do, or Harry, the Director of Strategy at Class in Vietnam, and Huy Tran, the Co-founder and Managing Director at FlexiData. This will be for an in-conversation on Australia's fit in the Vietnamese EdTech market. So for companies to maximise their participation in today's session, we encourage you to use the chat box on Balloon to ask any questions you have for our speakers. These speakers are experts in the Vietnamese market and ready to give you the insights you need to launch successfully. So please use that chat box. With that introduction, it's my pleasure to welcome Han from EdTech Agency to stage to deliver a presentation on the Vietnamese market. Following that, David Linke, the Managing Director at EduGrowth, will jump on to facilitate some Q&A and ask some of those questions that you put in the chat box. So just to introduce Han, Han is the founder and CEO at EdTech Agency, an organisation that connects and redistributes worldwide EdTech resources in order to serve people from all walks of life, companies of different sizes and countries at different stages of development. So welcome, Han.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. And thank you all for having me here today. I'm glad to be able to share some of the market insight from the Vietnamese EdTech markets.
Perfect.
So,
well,
yes.
I believe you've got a presentation to show us. I might just see if we've got that screen share ready. Do you want to screen share those slides for us like you think you had before?
Yes. Are you seeing the presentation right now?
Yeah, presentation.
Yeah, so I'm good to go ahead, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'll hand over to you to go, and then David will jump on in a few moments.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, thank you.
So are you able to put those slides up?
It's not.
No, it's not at the moment. So just screen share like we did before. Just under screen, there's that little red strike through and select the application.
Okay, got it. Window, right. Here.
Great. I'll hand over to you. Thanks, Han.
Yeah, thank you. So again, thank you, Sarah, and thank you all for having me here today. I'm glad to be able to share some of the market insight. So as you can see, Vietnam is no stranger to Australia, especially when it comes to the EdTech educational investment. You can see. We are going to take a close look at 2 main parts in the presentation. First of all, EdTech Vietnam, the market insight, and secondly, the strength and opportunity for foreign investment in Vietnam. So let's take a look at the brief profile on education. On the country educational system, it is a 3 billion markets. As you can see, the population in 2020 reached around 100 million, and the K-12 amongst the K-12 students account for almost 18 million, and the university and vocational students roughly around 1.7 million. But let me come back to the K-12 education because this sector has something unique selling point to share among the almost 18 million. The non-public school account for just less than 5%, which is only 850 thousand students, and this is the most dynamic K-12 market in Vietnam. The rest one, roughly also around 95% of the market are public school, still mainly run by the government. They are quite, currently they are quite hard to read in K-12 market. So when it comes to university and vocational training, the number of students less than 2 million, but this one is more independent in terms of making the decision in investment in educational technology. And in Vietnam, we have around 237 university and 65 of some are non-public university, which is a private or international university. And this market segment are very dynamic and willing to invest in the educational technology as well. In Vietnam, the business, in terms of geography, the business is divided into different regions, the north and the south. And the highest pace on education region is the south, with almost 4 times higher than the other region in Vietnam. So let's come to the GDP per capita, around 207 US dollar per people, and the government budget spent on education around 20 to 22%, account for 5% of the GDP. So come to the per student expenditure, ranging from 700 to 1,000 US dollar, and among us the government spent roughly around 400, and the family 300, and the rest one come from city and provinces budgets, but the number is still unknown. Family income spent on education in Vietnam is around 40 to 47%, just after food and shelter. So because Vietnam is a studious country, so family more than willing to spend on their kids or on their children education. Recently, the increasing English-speaking population in Vietnam allow easier delivery of educational product, especially so one imported from other country. And let's come to some of the market insight, talking about this one. We can't deny the fact that the COVID-19 outbreaks has contributed to the improvement of the digital education infrastructure and make it relatively ready for the country's digital transformation in education. Just for your information, Vietnam has launched the government has launched the digital transformation in education and make it the highlight one, and heavily invested by the government. The to support this, the penetration rate of the learning devices like smartphone, laptop is high, especially smartphones are very popular. More than 90% of students in Vietnam are using smartphone, PC, or laptop to study during the COVID-19. And recently, the Ministry of Education and Training already allowed K-12 students to bring smartphone and computer into laptop to support their digital learning. And besides that, some big players in the market like Microsoft and Viettel, they are offering computer to Vietnamese students to enhance their digital transformation in the school, especially during the school closure. We also have high internet connectivity rates, especially 4G is very popular in big and medium-sized cities and provinces, and 5G is coming to the markets as well. We are testing the 5G in some school and provinces. This is digital skill fairly good in general. However, the major portion out of 1.2 million K-12 teachers in Vietnam still need more training in computer skill. And during the COVID outbreak, 80% of the Vietnamese students study online. This ratio higher than the world average of 67.5%. This the ratio really surprised the world. At that time, we received a lot of media talking about Vietnam and Vietnamese digital transformation in education. The transformation is very fast changing, at least in terms of the quantity, and we are attracting a number of domestic and international investment from countries like Singapore, Korea, India, and Australia as well, of course. And we also have a strong consumer market for education. As mentioned before, the government spend around 20% of their total budgets, and families spend 47% of their total income on their uh, kids' education and also their themselves education as well. Because a lot of adult people and working people, they are also taking kind of the hybrid online course to upgrade their skill to meet the new market demand. However, in general, there are still demand for traditional education from some parents. And when it comes to startup and the business model, they are using the B2B and B2B2C sale with a free trial usage strategy to increase the conversion rate and gain paid customer later. The market is more willing to pay for online offline hybrid learning solution rather than just e-learning course or online programs. And to be honest, business in Vietnam still driven by relationship. Education is no exception. So it's usually require direct meeting to close deal. That's why having a local representative or local business partner is more important for foreign business expansion to Vietnam. And lastly, recently, following the Beijing constraint on education, Vietnam might become the next stop for foreign investment. Here's some of the top players in the local market. The ranking recently released by the EdTech Village within the TechFest event in cooperation with EdTech agency is released in November this year. As you can see, we have some market sector, some main market sector here. This one is a kindergarten, 20 top player, and this one is K-12 education, and this one is for workforce as well. Currently, Vietnam is ranked as the top 10 world fastest growing edtech markets. And back to 2019, the total revenue already reached 1.4 billion US dollar and expected to reach 3 billion in 2023. Up to now, we have over 600 edtech and e-learning products and solutions. The most popular ones are SMS, LMS, and CMS. Most attractive target markets are LMS and content for K-12, exam preparation, private tutoring, and English language. English in this sector will also the market also mainly focusing on the IELTS and TOEIC. And the last one is upskill for working professional. However, none of the market sector has yet dominated by any edtech company in Vietnam. So let's move to the next point. We're talking about strength and opportunity for foreign investment. Over the last 5 years, and particularly from 2020, we have witnessed a wave of edtech product exporting to Vietnam from different countries like Korea, Australia, India, China, and Japan as well. However, despite their investment, the market is still at the early stage, and the existing EdTech products only meet a small portion of the market demand. Private education institution remains the most dynamic and attractive one. For example, private education market in Ho Chi Minh is estimated over 600 million in 2020. That also means the biggest market, public education, lastly remain untouched, usually because they have a long approval process and lobby is still a popular culture in this sector. Regarding the products, LMS still on the top investment for school, university and vocational training as well. And the reason is there had been demand for SMS, school management system, for better school management in overall, because most of the local school who are applying EdTech solution, they are using at least 15 to 20 different software at the same time to manage their school and their data. So it's hard for them to connect the data and to analyze the data and make the best take advantages of the databases they have. Also, good news for foreign investors that they can own 100% of share of the educational school institution in Vietnam, and they also can apply 100% of their foreign curriculum in their international school. Foreign EdTech products export to Vietnam. For import products, pricing can be the first barrier and should be discussed with the local partner to come up with an affordable price for the target market. In addition, language is also a huge concern as well. Most of the Vietnamese students are still uncomfortable speaking and learning material in English and other languages. So I think that's come to the end of my sharing today. Thank you all. And if you have any question, I'm happy to answer during the discussion session. So back to you, David. Thank you again. Hello.
Thanks very much, Han. I've been chatting to the people who are watching us, and I've got a few questions that I wanted to ask, and then we can just jump in and start thinking a little bit about the opportunity for EdTech companies. Well, why don't we start there actually? Why don't we begin with just the very basic question, which is, what do you think are the things that Vietnamese education institutions are buying right now?
Buying right now. As I mentioned in one part of my presentation, they are looking for solution to help them to. I mean, they can be different product and solutions they are looking for as currently, but LMS and let me see, LMS is still in high demand, and also solution to have them to conduct the online training is still in high demand, because in Vietnam the popular one is still team.
It still is here too. Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom still very popular in Australia too.
Yeah.
So
also
there's no doubt about that. So yeah, 100%.
But team is very popular for higher education. I mean, university and vocational training. But for K-12 education, they are still using Zoom. Many using Zoom as a solution, and also Classin as well. Classin from China. Classin can meet the market demand in some aspect, but the fact that Classin from China can be kind of the constraint, shortage for the product. So the market is still looking for live solution for live class.
So are we seeing hybrid classes being delivered in Vietnamese education?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Are we seeing hybrid, where we've got some students locally and some students remote or virtual, or are they all virtual at the moment?
like the last 2 weeks, almost most of the schools are still closed. I mean, physical schools still closed. But recently, I mean, since last week and this week, some of the school and some of the city already opened their school for students to come back.
Okay.
But very small portion.
Okay, so I'm interested in a couple of things. I think, have you still got your slides there in front of you?
Yes.
Yeah, can you just share them again? I just want to go back to one slide. I just wanted to pull out which way you had the numbers of schools and universities. Really keen if you can put that up.
Yeah, let me share.
Yeah, no problems. No rush.
Okay.
I'm looking in the conversation piece. I'm not seeing any questions. Just a reminder, if anybody wants any questions whilst Han is bringing these up, we can
Which
ask
slide do you want?
Yeah, go forward one slide, and I'll tell you when to stop. Stop there for a second. No, go back.
This one. This one.
Yeah. So there are 17 million K-12 students. How many schools is that?
The number of schools. Let me do the
Roughly
calculation. Roughly, I mean more than 50. I mean it can come from 40 to 50,000 schools, I think.
Okay, so 40 or 50,000 schools. Okay, great. And of the universities, how many universities?
University, we have roughly 300, but the official number we have here is 237.
Can I ask a practical question about universities? Not universities. I'll come back to them in a minute. A practical question about schools. So my experience in an emerging market like India, is the example. There are 1.3 million schools in India. Essentially, 1 million of them are government schools and have very little funding. We then see that there are two types of private schools, low-fee private schools and high-fee private schools. And essentially for Australian EdTech companies, it's really the high-fee private schools that are the target, because the others, one, don't have the funding to buy technical products, or two, don't really know how to use it. So a question for you is, of those 50,000 schools, how many of them do you think are actually accessible to non-Vietnamese EdTech providers?
That's why I give you in the presentation. I give you the non-public sector out of the K-12 student. It just account for 4.8%. This is the market sector that foreign product can target to.
Is less than 1 million students? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But also because the government are increasing, the government and also the city and provinces, they have the budgets to allocate for the public school as well. I mean, the number are increasing. So some percentage of the public school can be targeted as well.
Okay, perfect. That gives us some scene setting as well. And the final question along a similar sort of line for universities is actually, can we grab those slides back, Jeanette?
Back this one. You mean this one?
The slide that we're on. That's it. Just stay there for that one there.
This one, right?
Stay there. Yep. Of these universities, we've got 1.7 million students in 300 universities, and 65 of them are public and 237 of them are non-public, or just explain that to me again.
65 of them are non-public university. I mean, they are private or international university.
Okay. All right. So there's 65 universities that you think are potentially target.
Actually, I just highlight the number because university, higher education and K-12 education are quite different. Because K-12 education, they still largely under the government control and by the government regulation. So it's a long process for them to make the decision. But the university and vocational training, they are quite independent, They have their own budgets and they make their own decision whether they can invest in the EdTech product or not.
Okay,
So
fantastic.
I mean, all of the sector are very open for the foreign investment and foreign product as well. It's just a fact that whether they have the budget to invest or not, they can make the decision. Especially the vocational training sector is very potential because of the demand for digital educational content to practice during the COVID-19. More this sector after K-12 student, vocational training students are most affected by the COVID-19 because lack of the practical digital content for them to practice. Because you can imagine that usually they have to be on site as a school to practice, say like a skill job or something like that, but they cannot do it on online.
Okay. I have one other practical question for you, because what we
Yes.
have is we have half a dozen or to a dozen EdTech companies with us today who are thinking about Vietnam as an export market for them. So I have a very practical question. What sort of price point are you expecting to see products come in at? What sort of price point do you expect to see a product at? Let me give you some context for that. In Australia, typically in government schools, I tend to see people selling to schools at $10 to $20 per student per year. Expensive products are sort of $40, $50, $60 per student per year. What are you expecting in the Vietnamese market?
Well, it depends. If you are bringing LMS or SMS to school or as a kind of platform, and you come to the student per student pay model, right? It should come from $1 to $2 per student per school year.
Okay.
That's acceptable, and that's a like a existing price right now. And when it comes to the program or training course or something like that, it should roughly it can come from $5 to $10.
Okay. That is an incredibly good thing for you, Han. I know it's very hard to put a number, but it gives people something that they can anchor themselves in and think about themselves and think about what they want to do. There's a great question which I'm going to see whether or not, Jeanette, if you've got it coming through, otherwise I can just take it straight from Balloon, which is the skill and vocational sector funded by government or mostly by private?
Vocational training, you mean?
Yes.
Vocational training student, most of them, the family have to pay for their education. Mostly, they receive some funding from the government, but very small portion. The government mostly focusing on K-12 education, and they invest most of the budgets there. University and vocational training receive a very small portion, especially vocational training.
Okay. That gives us some great insight. Okay. So another practical question, because we're going to go and ask our speakers in a moment too, from a very practical question perspective.
Yes.
What do you think, what's your biggest recommendation for non-Vietnamese companies considering Vietnam as an export market for how to do market entry? Is it going direct to customers via the net? Is it finding a local distribution and implementation partner? Is it employing staff on the ground? Like, what's the way that you would be suggesting that people think about the Vietnamese market and how they might create sales there?
Also, as I mentioned before, doing business in Vietnam still driven by relationship. It can be personal relationship or professional relationship, through different types of network. So I think the most effective way for foreign product to enter the market is through some kind of having the right partners in Vietnam is, I think, one of the key point here. To have them to establish a sale network. Of course, that's the first point. I mean, the first thing is that to help them to identify the potential of the market, because to see whether really they have the market for their product or not, and then later on help them to establish a sales network, or to connect with the right authority to get their product approved by the government or something like that. Because in Vietnam, education is still some of the educational product still needs approval by the government.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what that approval might look like, Han? Like, what sort of approval will a product need, and what's the process in very simple terms of how you do that?
Yeah. For example, for K-12 education, if some company bring in the digital content for K-12 education, so digital content should be like a map with the national curriculum, and it's good if you have the government, I mean the Ministry of Education, approve the programs, approve the content, and then once you have the approval, you can distribute your product to the public school, not only to private school as well. That's the approval from the government for digital content, especially for K-12 education, and also in order for the foreign university institute to provide programs, with a certain certificates or degree, they also need the approval from the government as well. Or they have to work with one local university, and the local university can support them in terms of getting the approval from the government. You just cannot bring the program and drop it into the market.
Yeah, no, I'm getting that really clearly. I think this is the most practical, that on the ground advice that we can give people, and it makes it really clear. I'm hearing, you're not saying it, but I'm hearing find a partner, find a partner, find a partner, find a partner, find a partner. That's what I keep hearing as you are speaking, right? You've got to find a partner to help you navigate this process.
Find a right partner, I think, is one of the key point for the first penetration. I mean, I can see that many foreign company apply this strategy. At least for the first 1 or 2 years, they are having they're trying to having a very strong local partner to support them with the distribution, or reach out to the customer network, and get all the document and legal document done, and approval from the government as well, everything. And then actually from the year 2 or year 3, you can independently operate in Vietnam with a small office.
Yes, of course. But again, if you've got a great partner, I don't know, it's a good way of doing business in markets where it's challenging regulatory, but it's also challenging. Language is an issue, right? Like, language is an issue in Vietnam, right? If you're an Australian company and you don't have native Vietnamese speakers on board, or you have Vietnamese speakers like we do who embarrass their grandparents with their terrible Vietnamese, then you need to have local partners.
Yes, right. Even so the speaking English speaking person increasing, but it's still barriers,
Yes. Let me go back to my questions that we have here. Tell me a little bit about EdTech agency directly, and the services and the support processes you provide to companies considering entering the market.
Well, we are considering ourselves as a consulting agency, because and also at the same time we are providing different types of services to support our client to enter the market as well, including the business matching services. And first of all, we usually offer kind of the market research to identify the potential of the market for our clients, because as a matter of fact, some of our clients, when they enter the market, they think that the market is very potential. When once you look into the general statistics and figure, you think that it's very potential. But in fact, it depends on the product or solution you are trying to bringing into the market. So that's the first thing we offer to our client is to conduct the market survey. Can be the quick one and can be a very in-depth one to identify the potential of the market, and later on we can support with some business expansion. That means that our team operates as a representative office in Vietnam for our client to establish a business here in terms of connecting with the potential clients and arrange a business matching and conduct with all the legal document, etc. But our main services is business matching, which is we try to connect our foreign client with the potential customer in Vietnam, especially in K-12 markets and higher education. And lastly, we also offer like consulting services for like all sector. I think that's mainly what we are doing right now.
Okay, fantastic. And we've got time for a sort of final question here before we move on. Talk to me a little bit about the localization that you would recommend EdTech companies think about when entering Vietnam. What sort of localization do they need to do?
You mean localization?
Yes, of their product.
Well, as a matter of fact, most of the Vietnamese students are working people. They are still very struggle using the English, so and other language as well, not only the English. So because in general, when the foreign product wants to try to enter the market, we advise them to follow two steps in terms of the content or product localization. The first step that they can try to deliver their product into the high-paid market and to see the actual response from the market. And later on, when they can they can have some market share in this sector, they can think about the content localization or product localization to go to a larger public sector and larger sector that only accepts the Vietnamese language products. So that's the 2 point, because with the English language products, the market share are very limited in terms of the number of users and in terms of the geography. You can just only go to some kind of the major city like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh. It's hard to go to other very potential city like Hạ Long and Da Nang and some other city as well. That's the point.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, and it's one of those things.
Can I add one more?
Yeah.
In terms of the localization, for the platform and LMS, of course, just user interface good enough. But for the content localization means that you not only have to translate, but also have to do some kind of modification or develop the content to meet the the studying culture in Vietnam, and also to accommodate with the national curriculum. So that's the thing. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Han, thank you so very much for your insights and your thoughts and giving us some really candid advice, thinking about Vietnam as an export market for us. And I understand that we're going to have an opportunity to go and meet you on the Balloon platform in one of the breakout rooms at some point, but I'm sure Sarah, when she comes back as MC, will give us that detail. Thanks very much, Han.
Thank you, David.
What we do is we're waiting for one of our other speakers. He is coming hot in from another meeting, and what we're going to do is might just take a quick 5-minute pause here while we wait for Hugh to join us. We've got Harry Doe, who's going to be a really interesting conversation. We're going to do we're going to continue this practical conversation. If there's anything that you wanted to ask, please do put it in the chat box and I'll make sure that we add it in here. Let's have a conversation. We've got 3 fantastic speakers who are on the ground experience in how to sell product to schools, universities and workforce trainers in Vietnam. So we'll just pop up a holding slide. We'll get going at 10 to, so go and have a grab your cup of tea or coffee or whatever, and we'll be back in a few minutes. All right, we're back here. We're going to move forward with our next session. One of our speakers is going to be coming in from another meeting, actually a customer meeting. So he'll be with us in the next 5 or 10 minutes. In the meantime, we will get started. Again, we have organised some great speakers for this next block. We're going to hear from Harry, who is a startup founder by day and an online teacher by night. He is working as a director of strategy for Class in Vietnam, which in fact actually Ms. Han mentioned a few moments ago, as well as being a platform out of China, which is one of the top 50 global EdTechs nominated by the GSV team, which is the guys behind ASU GSV, the largest EdTech conference in the world. Graduating from the University of Cambridge. Oh, there we go. There's a little talking point. We'll ask Harry about University of Cambridge and the work he's been doing. He founded Tutor In Education, which aims to offer high quality online English tutoring to young kids from 6 to 12. And in 2021, Tutor In was featured in the leading ESL EdTech in Vietnam by Tech in Asia. So welcome, Harry. Hi, Harry. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, hello guys. I'm really happy to be here today to join the sessions with you guys.
Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about your journey, and then we'll talk a little bit about the EdTech sector as well.
Actually, I studied business, and then I started my career as a marketer. So I work for Ogilvy Mathers. This is a communication agency, and so then like my career just changed when I quit the agency life, and I started working for a messaging app called Zalo. Zalo is one of the biggest messaging application in Vietnam. There are roughly 100 million users using this application. It's just like WeChat version for Vietnam market, and in Vietnam, like Yellow just like offer WhatsApp or other messaging application to become the most popular. So it gave me an opportunity to work with others developers and product teams and nurture my passion for technology. But at the same time, so I'm still working as the English teacher for different language centers at night because I started teaching for like 7 years, and then I think okay, I can combine technology and education together, and we did some research about what the current EdTech landscape in Vietnam and in China. So we learned about VIP and their live tutoring model. So I decided to start our tutoring and use Buzzin as a platform to teach English for.
Now that makes sense. Now I'm getting the connection. So bear with us 1 second. We actually have Hugh with us as well. So we're going to add Hugh to the run as well. So Hugh is the co-founder and managing director at FlexiData, which is a software company that provides custom app development, software development, web development, and services, including being the Vietnamese distribution partner for 3P Learning. Welcome, Hugh.
Thanks, David. Hello, everyone. My pleasure to see you today.
Fantastic. All right, so welcome along. Thanks for coming, Hugh. Sorry, I'll go back to you, Harry. Now that we've got Hugh with us, finish your story. So you were building Tutor In, and it was sitting on the Class In platform, right?
That's right. Like I mentioned before, I use Zoom as the first video conferencing platform to teach, but because my target customer, my target student, are quite like young learner, we prefer the interaction between the teacher and the student. Therefore, the existing solution, some video conferencing platforms like Teams or Meet, not really meet my requirement. Therefore, I look around and I found Classy, and it's quite designed for education and online teaching. Therefore, I use it. Actually, Classy offers services to many top rated ESL tutoring companies like Microsoft or Fiverr. They are existing companies. I think that's quite popular for ESL's industry.
All right, we'll come back to that, Harry. Sorry, just come back to it. Hugh, tell us a little bit about FlexiData as well before we jump into some understanding around the market.
Sure.
Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. My name is Huy Trung. I'm from FlexiData Vietnam. We have office space in Ho Chi Minh City. We have people in Hanoi as well. You know, in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi are two main cities. FlexiData was started 10 years ago. It was a very technical software company providing customized software. But 4 years back then, we decided to focus on education, provide solution for school, university, and also training centers, after-school training center. We are currently a distributor of 3P Learning in Vietnam. Our business model mostly serving school and education institute, B2B and B2B2C as well. And we own, Vietnam education market is have recent big change due to COVID situation. There's a lot of fake news, and we're glad that we can to service local customer here in Vietnam.
All right, I think we may have lost Harry. I don't know if you can still hear us, Harry. I know we have lost Harry. His internet connection has been less than stable. Hugh, in the session that you weren't here for, we actually had Ms. Han from the EdTech agency talking to us about price point. And I wanted to clarify, in your mind, what sort of price point does someone need to be selling their EdTech product at, say, to a school or to a university to make it commercially viable in Vietnam, from your perspective?
Right. It's a tough question. It's a complicated question.
That's why I'm asking you. That's why I'm not answering it. I get to ask the question, you get to answer it.
Right. We've been working with different SaaS vendor in global, like Asana. We also represent for Asana in Vietnam. You know, it's a SaaS vendor, different SaaS vendor. We'll see the big gap, obviously, because the income and the GDP very much different from between Vietnam and Western country like Australia or US. Before that, I did mention that about the ratio is around 1:5. So it's hard to say. Is it the vendor? It's a tough decision when they said, oh, 1:5. We have to certify 80% of our revenue in order to penetrate the market like Vietnam. Is it worth to do that? But you don't have to stratify 80% because experienced vendor do have a lot of advantages, but we have to something to compromise in between. So let's say a student in Vietnam, it depends on the type of school. We have public school, private school. I just give you some number. Like public school, the tuition fee is maybe like less than 1,000. No, sorry. Public school less than a few hundred AU dollar for per year. So very cheap.
Just one stop, Hugh. A couple of $100 per year for in primary school, secondary school? Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about at university?
K-12 school.
Okay, so you're saying the fees that parents pay are around a couple of $100 Australian per year. Is that right?
For public school, for private school, I could say about 1,500 AUD per year. Sure.
That's really important. Thank you. Thank you. That gives us some context. So Ms. Han was talking about platforms being priced at about $1 to $2 per year per student, and for courses 5 to 10 or content $5 to $10 per student per year. Do you think that makes sense to you?
It very much depend on which solution to the school, right? So basically, we are also provide solution like teaching, learning and teaching, like 3PLs, licensing,
Yes.
3P learning, and on the other hand, we do operation excellent like LMS and SIS, student information system. I would say that for LMS, private school can pay, like 10, 15 US dollar per year per student. We also we'll see that because it's very important piece of software in a school. It's a major platform to help school operate. But in terms of like small and nice to have, it's always the better of consideration between price versus the return.
Okay, I think we've got Harry back now. I think we've managed to get him to find an internet connection that's got some more stability. So Harry, I don't know if you missed the question, so I'm going to ask you the same question. What price point do you think we need to be selling at in Vietnam to be commercially viable?
Honestly, I think it depends on the product that we sell. You offer like B2B or B2C product.
Yeah, so let's talk about B2B, right?
Yeah,
71% of Australia's EdTech companies B2B. So talk to me about B2B.
Yeah, for B2B, like so when classrooms let's talk about our experience when we penetrate into this market. We used to like pricing our product a little bit premium, so really high price, like 4 times or 5 times like more expensive than Zoom or Google solution. So and then we learned that like the price that Google or Zoom they offer in this market is quite the benchmark for any EdTech you would like to provide. For example, like for license-based product, the universities or the education companies prefer to pay from $4 to $15 per teacher account. So if you set a price based on like teacher account base, so that is the price that we see
and you're talking US dollars?
Yeah, US dollar.
So can I confirm, because I'm going to get asked this in a minute, right? So I'm going to confirm for the audience, they're going to ask me to clarify. You're saying for a tool that's sold to the teacher, like an infrastructure tool like Zoom or something like that, you're seeing prices between $4 and $15 per teacher per year.
Per month, not per year.
Per month?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a big market, no problems. All good.
Yeah.
I'm happy. Per teacher, per account, per month. Okay, fantastic. So now let's say I had a tool like a maths tool, and I won't ask you to comment, Hugh, because I know that you represent 3P. But if you had a maths tool and you were selling it to individual schools, what do you think my price point should be?
I'm not telling everyone we pricing about $20 per student per year per school, and it pretty much depend on the number of students. US dollar. Of course. And if we have school more than 1,000 or few thousand students, we definitely can negotiate the price and give the customer the chance to get the products, because 3P learning good products. And
these are better pricing than I thought, so this is good. This is what I'm starting to hear as well. And I asked Ms. Hahn the same question. I'm going to ask both of you the similar question, which is, there are, I think if we look at the numbers, there were about 1 million students that Ms. Hahn think are accessible in about 40 to 50,000 schools, because the rest are in sort of very low socioeconomic schools. Do you sort of see that, Hugh, as something that makes sense to you?
I could say that it depends on products again. 3P learning positioning in Vietnam mostly for private school, and private school are also segmented in different groups, right? So we have roughly 23 million student people. But our rank, like the private school, is around 300,000 students maximum. So this is the
in
target
the private schools.
Private school only, yeah.
Okay.
To main city only, yeah.
Awesome.
This,
What about you, Harry?
That is some interesting numbers about the private education in Vietnam. The percentage of private education compared to public education, like the private is still pretty small. Even though the government they have the policy to encourage the private education, so we can see the room to grow for private education is still really big in Vietnam. And according to what I know, private education at the moment accounted for probably like from 5% to 7% of the total education industry. So again, I think for software as a service, for EdTech, private education is one of the segments that's more willing to pay. And like FlexiData for classes, we also really like sell well on that segment compared to public school. For public school, we prefer some social impact rather than like revenue stream, because we just can pay, just like approach the Department of Education and Training to encourage them to adopt the solution rather than selling to individual school. So that is some background information that I would like to share.
All right, so now you've done a very nice segue for me, Harry. I don't need to do that segue as torturous as I was going to. Let's talk about sales models. Let's talk about the way to enter the market, right? So I'll come to you first, Hugh. What sort of sales models do you think non-Vietnamese EdTech companies, and specifically Australian EdTech companies, need to consider when thinking about approaching the market?
Right. Yeah. And what we
So,
go, Hugh. Go, Hugh. I'll come to you in a second, Harry. Same question.
Sure. So basically, this is the approach that we not just recommend for Australian business, but we also do the same. We believe that Australian business can do the same. We promote a lot of local events. So we are one of the major education partner of Microsoft. So in the past, before the pandemic, most of the local education event we participate. We are exhibition event and education where educators, school management can come. There are not a lot of good education event out there, so they definitely try to come. Secondly, the partner network. FlexiData, we also seeking for a partner who, like let's say, selling infrastructure to school, university. We partner with them so they can give us a weaker way to approach the leader team, the right people. We also try to build case study in Vietnam. Very super important that we can spread the word. It's the word of mouth way of working, so we can become like well awareness in the local market. Yeah.
Okay. And Harry, what about yourself? How do you think EdTech companies should approach the market in the sales model?
Like I agree with and we about the approach. Like for our EdTech company like us, we try to find the right partners in Vietnam. For classrooms, we looking for the local learning management systems, so we can integrate our solution into those learning management systems. Or we partner with some ERP solution, a school management system. They have a good network with different schools, and they already established their presence there for like 5 or 10 years. So they have a strong network in Vietnam, and it's quite a good leverage because it helps us to approach the larger spoons of customer, and we also mentioned our event or webinars is one of, I think, it's a good lead generation channel for EdTech to approach B2B, because you can meet the potential customers, or you can create a relevant event to attract the K-12 school, for example, to join those events and initiate a conversation with them. So yeah, I just want to emphasize more about what we just shared, and totally agree with him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you for that. And that reminds me that we have our half-day summit happening in February 2022, where all the participating companies will get an opportunity to showcase their product, and they'll have a virtual booth and so forth. But it's very important also to note that you need to think about Vietnamese language delivery, right? Because English language capability is going to be limited once you get past a certain level of school or institution. There is another question I wanted to ask you, and I don't know that either of you have specific direct experience in it, but maybe best connected to you, Harry, around what's the enrichment market like in Vietnam for sort of B2C sales outside of the school sector? So are there, I think you mentioned your tutoring business is doing that. What's the market? What's the market sort of opportunity, I think, is the best way to put it, for people who are selling directly to consumers?
From my experience and my observation, I do see some B2C EdTech, such as like English tutoring. So we have some companies like EduGrowth, Topical, or Kina for Kid. So they offer like English tutoring, and they hire the tutor from foreign countries and offer online tutoring to middle class families in Vietnam who live outside the biggest city. Because in Vietnam, I think for the biggest cities like Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, the market is quite mature, but the tier 2, tier 3, or suburbs areas, the students have limited access to high quality teacher. Therefore, that's the one opportunity for like B2C product. The second one that I noticed is content provider. That's like Grand Guru. It's just like a Baidu version for South Asia, and then penetrate into Vietnam market. They create videos, localized content for Vietnamese curriculums, and they sell their product directly to parents. But those companies still looking for a product market fit strategy. They haven't really proven model yet. So I would recommend another case study. This is HocMai.vn. It is a test prep provider. They provide pre-recorded video to K-12 students who are prepared for university entrance examination. So yeah, they sell pretty well, and one of the market leader, because university entrance examination is one of the most important exam that K-12 Vietnamese students need to pass and need to meet the future. Therefore, the parents and even the student willing to pay in order to secure a good seat in a good university. So test rep and pre-recorded videos with HocMai is quite a good market fit and proven on the market at the moment.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Harry. And I'll put the final question to you, Hugh, before we then move into, I think we're going to move to breakout rooms. So my final sort of question for you, Hugh, is just to give us a commentary on internet connectivity and infrastructure that exists across schools today. So Hugh, do you want to give us a bit of insight to that? So what sort of internet connections do they have? How stable are they? And finally, what sort of infrastructure would we expect to see in our schools, universities, and workplaces?
Right, it's a good question, David. Very it's a question that every school asking me when we penetrate and approach for SaaS, and I would say that Vietnam infrastructure is on the way developing and improving. Is not at the stable situation yet. So, and also we have some factor in terms of the government, and also the depend on the sea cable that sometimes situation affects the internet connection. So the school always asks for the highest connection. Let's say if the internet connection drop down, what are the alternative solution that we can do? It create a more trouble, more complication for us to sell solution to the school. But on the other side, a lot of school leader, they well aware that the adoption into SaaS and online is they have some drawdown, but it's also a lot of advantage. So Microsoft had been implemented a good example that they implemented a lot of Office 365 into local school. And we also get this good example to showcase to the school that, it should be okay. You don't worry too much. Sometimes connection up and down, but it's not killing everyone. So this is it's always the topic to discuss, David.
Okay, fantastic. Hugh, Harry, thank you so much for giving us your personal insights to the market, giving us a little bit of clarity around the price points, the sales models, the infrastructure we might find, the sort of things that people are buying. That's been a great sort of one-to-one understanding from some people who are on the ground in country doing those things. So Hugh and Harry, thank you so very much. I'm going to hand back to Sarah Lamont, who will wrap us up.
Thanks, David. And thank you again to Hugh and Harry for your insights. So it was a very interesting session. Now we are nearly wrapping up the program for today. But before we do that, I did just want to share some details on next year's program, which is, as David mentioned, the Global Summit on Opportunities Across Australia and Vietnam. Now, that Global Summit is scheduled for 23rd of February 2022. It's a public event where our in-country partners, EdTech agency, will gather an audience of educators across K-12, higher ed, and the workforce sectors. So this is a great opportunity to highlight the capability of your company through demonstrations, hosting an expo booth, and presentations as well, plus any case studies you have on how you've impacted your users. So that's something to put in the calendar for next year. What we'll do now is invite all of the speakers as well as our attendees to join the participate rooms. Now that's located on the left side of your screen. You'll see participate, and then you can click on the room of the speaker you'd like to connect with. Feel free to hop across those rooms. We'll have those rooms open for another sort of 10 to 15 minutes. So feel free to head across and ask our speakers whatever questions you have on the market in Vietnam. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. Have a lovely afternoon.